Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Calling His Bluff. This is a story about a confrontation between myself and a neighbor, and how a tiny act of malicious compliance in the form of an apology turned a hostile neighbor into a defeated puppy. A couple years ago, my wife and I and son moved into a new neighborhood in a small city, large town in the middle of nowhere, Canada. We quickly began to settle into our new place, which had a large backyard with trees, shrubs, flowers, etc. Midway through the summer, I began noticing that tent caterpillars and their silky tents had infested our apple tree. I talked with a couple of locals who informed me I needed to cut off all affected branches and burn them to avoid these pests spreading further and killing my tree or any other trees nearby. My wife and I did as instructed and proceeded to trim off all the branches and put them in our fire pit, where we used lighter fluid to burn them crispy. We were burning the last of the branches when a grumpy old man, Gom, comes storming into my backyard madder than a hornet. Gom, what's going on here? Me, oh, hey. We are just burning up some branches from our apple tree. It has tent caterpillars and… Gom, do you have a permit for that fire? Me, no sir. We didn't know we needed one. The last town we lived in, you didn't need any permits for backyard fire pit fires. Gom, well, you need one and you're breaking the law. Put that out right now or I'm going to call the fire department. Me, oh. Yes, sorry. I didn't know we needed a permit. We are done burning anyways, so I'll put this out right away. Gom turns around and storms away and heads across the street. I casually watch him to see which house he goes into so I know which one to avoid in the future. The next day I phone around and discover that you simply need to go down to the local fire hall, pay $10, and register with the fire department to get your permit. It never expires. I proceed to take the necessary steps and within 30 minutes I have my fire permit. You don't actually get a piece of paper or anything, they just put it into their records that you have one. That evening we invite a couple of our new friends over for a wiener roast and s'mores. About an hour into our hangout, a red pickup truck with the fire department's badge drives down our back alley and stops at our yard. Fireman, FM, hey, you need to put out that illegal fire. Me, what? It's not illegal, I have a valid permit. I stopped by earlier today and purchased one. FM, oh. Well. Your fire is too smoky and it's bothering your neighbors, so I need you to put it out right now. And if this happens again, you can lose your fire permit permanently. Me, okay sir. Whatever you say. I proceed to put out the fire, but I knew something was up. How did he know I had an illegal fire? Why did he make me put it out anyway? I figured someone must have complained and reasoned that it must have been Gom. I apologized to my friends, finished my hot dog, and proceeded to march over to Gom's house and knocked on the door. Gom, hello? Me, hi, it's me, your neighbor from across the street. The one you chatted with yesterday about the fire? Gom, oh, hi. What do you want? At this point a sweet old lady, Sol, who was Gom's wife, pokes her head around the corner and sees me. Sol, hi. You must be the new neighbor. Come in. Come in. She ushers us through the house and out onto their back patio deck, where she seats us down. Sol, can I get you something to eat or drink? Me, oh, I'm fine, thank you. Sol, I insist. Let me make you some lemonade. Me, sure. That would be nice. She leaves me and Gom sitting alone at a table while she goes and makes us lemonade. I seize the opportunity and decide to confront Gom about this whole fire permit nonsense. Me, hey, so the fire department stopped by today and made me put out my fire. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Gom, yes. I told you that you needed a permit to have a fire. Me, right. That's why I went down to the fire department today and purchased one. But they still told me to put out the fire because it was too smoky and was bothering my neighbors. Gom stammers, for a bit surprised by the fact that I had a valid permit. Well, the smoke from your fire was terrible, and it was blowing into our house and bothering my wife. She is very sensitive to smoke. I could tell that he was making this up on the spot, so this is where I hatched my malicious compliance plan. I apologized to Gom for my insensitivity, and made small talk until Sol returned with our lemonades and sat down. With my most innocent, I love old lady's face on, I leaned across the table and said, "Mrs. Sol, I want to apologize for my fire and the smoke. Mr. Gom told me that smoke bothers you, and I had no idea our fire was causing you so much trouble." At this point Gom shifts uncomfortably in his chair and I could tell I had called his bluff. "Sol, whatever do you mean? Your smoke wasn't bothering me in the slightest." She shoots a dagger of a glare towards Gom. "Don't you worry about me, your fires are none of my concern." I apologize one more time with a side glance at Gom, just to drive the point home. "Are you sure? Because we want to be good neighbors and we don't have to have fires if they bother you." "Sol, shush that talk. I'm perfectly fine. You and your friends enjoy all the fires you want." I make eye contact with Gom, who knows he has been thoroughly defeated at his own game. He quickly looks away, hangs his head like a puppy who got caught stealing treats, and mumbles something about wanting to be a good neighbor at the prompting of his wife. I revel in the power of my malicious compliance victory while we make small talk and finish our lemonades. I bid farewell to Gom and Sol, and walked back across the street with a huge smile across my face, knowing I would never again receive another fire complaint from Gom. I later found out that Gom used to work for the fire department and was buddies with the fire chief, which explains their odd behavior and quick response to his complaint. The next one is titled, "Property Owner Builds Fence Through Pool." According to one Reddit user, years ago there were two properties with separate houses, both owned by one homeowner. The old homeowner had both houses demolished and built one big house, complete with a swimming pool that takes up half of one property and half of the second one. Long story short, when the old homeowner sold his house, despite the fact there was one huge house with an equally big pool covering both properties, the idiot realtors in charge decided to sell the property separately to two different families, instead of selling the entire thing to one family. Now one family has the huge house, while the other one has land that doesn't have enough room to build a house on, especially since half of the swimming pool and half of the garage from the big house is going over the second family's property line. So the owners of the empty lot had a fence built that's going through the swimming pool and into the side of the garage to show where the property line is, while the two landowners fight what to do about the problem. What a mess. The next one is titled, "Oh, I'll edit it all right." I was going to buy a car from a small used car dealership. We agreed on a price and a day to meet. The morning of he sold it out from under me right before I was there with no courtesy call or text or anything. I wrote an accurate review reflecting my experiences with the dealership online. A couple days later he calls and threatens me with a lawsuit claiming my review is slander. He warned me everyone else that gave a 1-star review was sued for slander and had to pay court fees and remove their review. He said if I edited the review everything would be fine and he wouldn't take me to court. Well, I obliged and edited my review stating he threatened me over the phone with a lawsuit since I gave a negative review and that my review was in fact 100% accurate of my experiences. The icing on the cake. I texted him right after I edited the review and said, "Hey man, edited the review as requested, hope there are no hard feelings." I guess he didn't read my edit before replying with, "Thanks man, I appreciate it. No hard feelings." The next one is titled, "I make my job lose a lot of money." I worked at a place that made and sold bikes. These bikes were really good and expensive because we did custom design. This was one of those small places in the city. Also, we have a garbage boss. We made the bikes to order. None hanging on the walls or anything like that. I was a worker just doing my job making bikes. One shift, I could be making bikes, and another shift, I could be selling them. There were about 5 people working a day. So, I was making this really nice custom bike for a customer when we got a call. I asked one of my co-workers to help me finish the bike while I took the call. Let's call this guy Jim. Jim was a great guy. He would help anyone do anything. He was the guy who got everyone Christmas presents behind my boss's back because he also hates the boss. Anyway, on the call, someone was coming to pick up a bike. How we made the bikes were simple. We got a call or someone ordered online, or they can order inside and I can put it on the computer. So the caller was pretty nice. He ordered a cool bike for his son's birthday, and it had cool stripes and things like that. I put it all on the computer and left it to one of the other guys. What didn't know was that my boss went on the computer and freaking made that bike times 10. That means that my coworker had to make 10 bikes in the span of 2 days. I know for a fact almost all of you guys reading this do not know how to make a bike. It is no easy task. So, 2 days later, Jim called me, saying he finished 6 bikes and could make the other 4 the next day. I guess he didn't know they were due today. But then, I realized something. He said a total of 10 bikes. I was pretty confused about what was going on. I thought maybe it was for a different party or something, so I checked the computer. Nope, same one guy, just 10 bikes. I told Jim to stop making the bikes. The guy came in at about noon, and me and Jim gave the bike to the guy, loaded it into his car, and he went off to his apartment or something. Then my boss came in and asked why there were 5 random bikes around. I told him someone had changed the order from 1 to 10 bikes. Boss told us it was him who changed it and he expected us to finish those 10 bikes and sell them all by tomorrow. Some more context, these bikes were expensive. Like 200 plus expensive. Me and Jim decided to finish the bikes. Then, I got an idea. People all over the city knew how expensive these bikes were. They also knew there were almost no sales on these bikes. When there was one, we pretty much became the Black Friday of bikes. So many customers and so little workers to make the bikes. Once we finished the 9 bikes, remember, we gave the 10th to the guy. I made a huge poster that said, $1 bikes here, limited sale for 1 day. Limited stock. You don't understand how fast we got rid of 9 bikes. My boss said sell the bikes. He didn't say for how much, lol. When he saw $9, he literally screamed at the top of his lungs. Think of Mr. Krabs, this guy loved money. Malicious compliance completed. The next one is titled, Advance Auto Parts has stupid deal, I take advantage of it. Not the most interesting story in the world, but I think it fits. At Advance Auto Parts there's one of those perma deals it seems, where you can get 5 quarts of high mileage synthetic oil and a filter for $38. For context, that oil is generally $43 and the filter is usually $8, so this is a great deal. The problem, however, was that I don't need a filter, and not wanting to waste my money on one, I went to ask if they have such a deal for just the oil. They told me no, the deal is only available if I get both the oil and the filter, and that's when an idea struck me. After checking with the person at the counter, I put my plan in motion. I bought both the oil and the filter with the deal, and without leaving the counter I requested to return the filter, which there wasn't a deal against, and got just shy of $8 back, leaving me with an approximately 33% discount on oil when I would have been perfectly fine paying more not to have to go through the effort of dealing with the filter. The next one is titled, I'm not qualified to do the thing that I just did, so no, I won't teach you. This happened in 2002-2003. I was doing billing support for a company, let's just say their name is reminiscent of a very large communist country. I had applied for an opening in their IT department. I interviewed for the position and about a week later, I was informed that I wouldn't get the position because I wasn't qualified for it. The person who got the position was the friend of one of the managers. He had spent less time out of high school than I had spent working in IT, so I knew it was more about his personal relationship with the manager than my qualifications. This company also had a billing system that was supposed to allow us to bring up copies of customer invoices and scanned copies of their contracts, but it didn't work. This problem had been ongoing for more than a year. The IT staff said there was nothing they could do to fix it. One day, I was poking around and I found the cause of the problem. The scanned customer contracts were in TIFF format, but they were saved into the system without a file extension, and our desktops were so locked down that we couldn't choose which programs open files. It was governed by the file extension. I found an old inactive customer's account, renamed the TIFF file, and when I clicked on the link, the contract opened. I found my manager and showed him. He asked me to show him how I did it. I refused. I said, I am not qualified to work in IT for this company, so obviously I don't know how to do the thing that I just did. Maybe you should ask one of the more qualified people in IT. Lastly, I hit Ctrl-Z to undo the file rename. The next one is titled, You Want Me to Run Things I Do Past You at Work? Sure thing, Karen. I work in automation for a business change department for a medium-sized company here in the UK. I improve manual boring processes by essentially getting robots to do them instead. My previous role is now being filled by a young lad that is now having more and more tasks added into his already huge workload. His manager, an elderly Karen, has recently given him a huge monotonous task to do as he's the only team member not working from home and it needs to be done in office. The guy is the really nice but shy type that just shuts up and works, and so Karen is keen to take advantage. When he told me that he's having to do this, I spent a day building an automation which can do the task for him and save about an hour and a half per day. I showed this to his manager also for future reference. "What do you think you're doing?" She said, "You really should be running this by management before you implement anything new like this. Bearing in mind that this doesn't change anything in the process and just makes this poor kid's life easier with the same result." "Sure, no problem," I say. I then write a very long and detailed email explaining how the automation works, including all the necessary management CC'd, and apologized that I did not let them know and had to in accordance with Karen. I apologized for not running it by her and explained the production of this was swift. All the managers praise me for being proactive, and Karen responds to all that I never have to apologize for making life easier for staff and helping our customers. Make your mind up, love. The next one is titled, "Don't Tell People You're Leaving." Okay, I won't. About 10 years ago, during my first full-time job out of college, I had a boss who decided she hated me. I'm not completely sure why, but she would go out of her way to make my life miserable. Demoted me to an overnight shift but wouldn't give me a reason, changed my shift around on a whim without notice, once changed my schedule for the next day after I had left without telling me, then wrote me up when I didn't show up on time. Stuff like that. She was a monster. So I was looking for another job. Well, I found one, and I went in to give her my 2 weeks' notice. This happened to be in the middle of a mass exodus for the company, as I was the 5th person to quit over the course of about 3 to 4 weeks. Morale was very low, and whenever anyone quit she would buy pizza for everyone instead of addressing why the place was so miserable and people were leaving. After I gave my 2 weeks, she said, "Don't tell anyone you're leaving." So I said okay, and walked out of her office and announced to all my coworkers, "Hey, guess what everyone? You're all getting pizza," and they instantly knew what had happened. She was very unhappy and I felt great. I served out the rest of my 2 weeks and she never spoke to me again. The next one is titled, "These work boots don't count." Well, then you can pay for what does count. So the company my friend works for provides a yearly stipend of $300 for work-related clothing and footwear. A few months back he purchased some protective clothing that would have been covered under the company policy but decided to just pay for that himself because he wanted to use his stipend for a pair of work boots he had his eye on. Don't know why. That's just what he wanted to do. Anyways, the boots were $200, and 100% classified as work boots. Like composite toe, extra tough leather, reinforced soles that can handle something crazy like 12,000 volts of electricity for 60 seconds before you get shocked. He gets the boots and sends the receipt into our HR responds by telling him those boots won't be covered because for some odd reason the company doesn't consider them work boots. I'm sure you can guess what happened next. He simply replied with an okay, and a few hours later, after he found he receipts for the clothing bought a few months back, he sent those receipts into HR for a 2-item total of $360. They paid him back the full $300 for the clothing. The next one is titled, "We Should Leave Each Other Alone?" Sure thing. This is fresh from a couple of hours ago. Friends and I were on a trip, kids included. There are 6 families including one I don't know. Friend of friend, absolutely no problem. I'll call the mum, Lady Snowflake, because that's how much I appreciate her. Anyway, midway during our trip Elle accidentally dropped a bag of toys. My child was asleep on my back so I was quite clumsy picking up. Some friends who weren't busy dealing with kids helped pick up, while a ball rolled to Lady Snowflake's feet. Mutual friend said, "Hey, name, can you please kick that back?" She knows I don't mind and kicking it back was the easiest way anyways. Lady Snowflake literally replied, "I don't know her, so I think we should leave each other alone." And that was it. Mutual friend muttered, "For duck's sake," and fetched the ball for me. Later, we were at the lakeside and I had a nice hammock set up. Lady Snowflake's kids got tired and began throwing tantrums. She tried getting them into the stroller without success. Meanwhile, my child was chilling on the hammock enjoying her berries. Mutual friend came to me and said Lady Snowflake wanted to ask if she and her kids could borrow our hammock for a while. I could hear one of her kids scream, I want it, I want it." I said she wanted us to leave each other alone and I will respect that. Then I joined my kid and had a nice iced tea. The last one is titled, Small but Petty Compliance. Today I was at a busy gas station grabbing a few cases of water that we were giving away for a charity group. All the cases were outside on a pallet display, so I went inside, told the cashier I was buying 5, she rang me up and I walked outside to grab 5 cases and load them into my van. Small note, I recently pulled my shoulder, so I can't lift as much as I normally would. I load 1 case at a time going back and forth from the display to my van. Enter Karen in her high-priced black SUV. She starts screaming at me, "Move your fat butt," and honks her horn. I go back and forth 4 more times but a lot more slowly. She keeps screaming the same phrase. After I was done, I look at her, turn my backside to her and start shaking it towards her. Then I yell to her, "I moved my fat butt, now what?" She sat there opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. It was beautiful to see. Thanks for listening.